Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living the Zolkeen. Coming at you live from Kyoto, Japan, via Mexico City. In today's episode, we're talking about Nawals Kat, Nawal Khan, and Nawal Keme. As usual, we're talking to Apapian Teyu. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and please shoot a message to myself or Apapian Teyu if you enjoy this podcast. Thank you very much, and please enjoy. Cheers.
Kat is a feminine nawal. In the classifications of nawals, this counts as a feminine. That is, in our language, it's called ishokil, ishokil, ishokil. It's feminine. It pertains to the feminine size of classification. Well, kat is a morpheme that it means to burn to ashes. That is the meaning as such. The keywords will be the first one, resolved debt. Following the metaphor, so when I'm talking about, even if you want like that, entropy and energy, whenever you resolve or whenever you pay, it's like applying energy to something, applying fire to resolve something. So Kat is going to talk about a resolved debt, but at the same time, an unpaid debt. The point is that debt will be also understood as a task, something that you have to do, something that is pending, something that you have to resolve yet, something that you have as an idea, as something that you said to someone else to do, or when talking about, for example, in the activities related to the Mayan calendar, yes, is when you have a task, when you have a debt, when you have something pending, or if you're going to go in the full frame of activities in the human consciousness, or whenever you talk about something pending, well, that's it. Kat is going to talk about debt, tasks, like, for example, binding, unbinding, like to resolve, to clarify, to resolve, to pay, to do the pending, to complete in a certain way. As such, and we are going to do, and we are going to follow the metaphor as such. Then it's going to be the descending fire. It's whenever you apply something, and when we're talking about the fire, in this case, is the descending. Is when the fire has been already fueled, but in some sense, and then it begins to descend. That it means that you already apply effort. Or one of the more important keywords is to pay, to give life to another. It's a
Right.
way of it's a pay of a payment. Is when you pay, and whatever you apply is not necessarily for your own, let's say, convenience, or its benefit is going to be for the other. You are the helper. You are the one that helps. You are the cat.
Something that I think is very interesting about what you said is that you never once mentioned net. I didn't hear you say net, and that's, if I search this on the internet, I'll encounter lots of articles and essays and paragraphs about net.
Well, the word net, the way of carrying materials in the Mayan way, is by nets. The woman carries stuff, for example, for going into the market, it will be a net, it will be a chim, it will be this net that is always stopped. How net is connected to Nawal Kat? In the sense that for to pay or for to do your payment, you have to carry all that you are going to pay in nets, paying with nets. It's, in a certain sense, it's talking about something that has been accumulated. So now you cannot carry with your hands, to carry the stuff and then to pay. That's the connection with Nawal Kat, to pay by nets, to carry your stuff to bring it, usually carried by in the head, in the native way of carrying materials with full nets, with full of materials nets. That's the connection. So it's more like a metaphorical way of talking about cat, because there also could be a verb, and cat means katik, to burn, to burn something to ashes. The distinction between dog and cat is that cat is the feminine, is when the fire is going down. So it already did its work. Then everything is resolved. Everything is in balance. Now, while dog, on the other hand, is when the fire is ascending, but that fire is hungry to be fueled. It's different. That is another way of a payment. The toch payment is for the fire to get stronger, to get more power, to get more heat, to be stronger, shiny.
I see. The descending fire.
Yeah, the one that already did the work.
I was not under the impression that it was a feminine Nawal. I thought it was a masculine Nawal. But,
well, the masculine side of the fire is toch.
Right, because it's the resting fire, and it becomes feminine. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's for example when you talk about toch. Toch means payment in the morpheme and in the verb. So that is the ascending fire, the masculine one, the one that is going to shine as the thunder or the sun. The opposite is cat, the feminine, the one that goes down after doing the work. So now is the hot charcoal or the remaining ashes of something that was already done. And even in our languages, in Spanish, in English, in Mayan, we always talk about a job that is done by ashes. I put it into ashes. I ended in ashes. Stuff like that. That's cat.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is sort of.
Because sometimes people ask me about, well, I am Nawals Kat. I'm always devoted to people. Yes, well, yes, that's what your Nawal is for.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it helps to explain a lot of the activities that I do. Right?
Yes, well, that's it. You got it. It's when you have to do something and then you have to put hands on the work and then sweat and you have to do what you need to do. And when you finish, then it's resolved debt. It's cat. It's katik. It burned already.
It's funny, this podcast feels like a form of cat to me. I don't know why I started doing it. I guess it's because I like listening to podcasts, but there was no available podcast about this topic. So I thought I would make one so that I could listen to it. And then
in that sense, it means that you have a task. You are applying your effort, but also to share. So it's cat, right? You are paying or you are doing your work, your stuff, your discipline. You are paying to give life to another. Every sense of teaching is also a cat because you are doing something for something else.
That's interesting. That's how I make my money, is by teaching. So that's interesting. I never thought about my job as a form of cat, but I suppose it's true. Okay. So then the next one is kan.
Kan is a very peculiar Nawal because it is and for example in Mayan, it depending on the dialectical variation, but
right.
mostly kan is fury.
Right.
The fury, and but sometimes it's a heavy word. The first idea that comes to us about fury with angriness or with temper in the character. But we need to go then to something that is related, for example, with the thunder. When the hot season is still on the mountains and everything is dry and the earth is beginning to change, then there's a moment in which the first thunder arrives. And Kan is associated with the sound, with the Kan, with the fury of the thunder, because the thunder arrives with this full of strength, um, uh, full of strength, energy appearing from the sky. So that's in a sense what is Kan, the stellar serpent, the thunder, but most related to the presence. Because Nawal is also the thunder, but in another sense. I'm not going to mix now. I don't want you to get confused. But Kan is the stellar serpent. That's why Kan is always represented by a serpent, a chichan, as is in Yucatec Mayan, the stellar serpent, the light in the sky that has this unique figure
No,
and appearing.
well, I've heard the phrase stellar serpent many times before, but stellar is stars. So is that a reference to the Milky Way itself, or how is it the stellar serpent exactly?
It's more about the figure of the thunder, the figure of
I see.
the
So
figure,
it looks
this
like a snake
wind.
that is passing across the sky.
That's it. You got it.
Okay. All right. All right. So there's nothing to do with stars then.
In a sense, yes, because what happens is that, remember that I have been saying during several times that in the Mayan proper and authentic ways, we analyze the stars and the way they behave or they draw images in the sky. But if you go directly to what is the representation of what is above, is always stars also, the path of the stars. And but in this case, can although we use the thing about this, I'm using the word stellar for trying to make the point in English, for trying
Sure.
to
Sure.
make
Sure.
it.
Sure.
It's not that it's necessarily a direct interpretation. If you make a review of everything that we have been said, the Mayan ways goes very 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 deeply into making metaphors to
Sure.
understand stuff. So in
Okay.
this
So
case,
then, go ahead.
oh,
It's okay. It's okay. You can continue.
well, in this case, then you have to picture the ending times of winter, and then the first moments of the beginning of sunny a short sunny season in which everything is dry, and then it begins the change in nature, and then gone. There's the stellar serpent, or the serpent of the sky, if you want to say it better like
Mm-hmm.
this. The sky serpent then appears with fury. That's
Okay.
that's That's
And
why in the languages can will also will mean fury, to act with fury.
which is the reference or a good metaphor for furious thunder.
Exactly.
Boom. And then is the fury connected with the rain and the return of the rain, or is that a different
Just
thing?
no, indirectly. What you have to do now, what you have to picture is that that is an starting point. That is an starting point of change in the relationship between the sky and the earth. Then there's going to come rain, but later, not as the first appearance of the thunder. The thunder appears, and then later there's going to be another dry and windy season before the thunder returns to bring the rain. But it's the starting point of renovation in nature. Is when following the metaphors of the Popol Vuh. First is yellow, then it's green. It's going to be green once again. The rain returns. But that point specifically is going to be more associated with talk. In this moment, we are talking about the fury, the presence, the change, the signal from the sky,
Right.
and
The
and
announcement.
yeah, we call it retal bishik, the sign, the announce. Then there's a beautiful history is told in the mountains. when the thunder appears is so masculine with fury, but then at the end, when there's echoes, then is more associated with a response from the earth, because at the final end, it's going to sound like a jaguar. Because in the first moment is this metallic, very fury announced by light and
Right.
sound. But at the end, if you listen carefully, it's going to be a sound that goes like the roar of a jaguar.
Right. Yeah. No, I can imagine. That's interesting. So then there's the metallic announcement, and then there's the response, the rumbling response or echo. I think
Yeah,
response is. Okay.
of
Can you tell me?
the jaguar that we already talked about, that the jaguar to
Sure.
be a very aggressive response
Right.
from the earth, not just as I said, not just a lovely mother
Right.
bird, but mother. The earth has the earth is.
Yeah. Jaguar Earth. Jaguar Mother Earth.
Yeah, the jaguar mother. So what?
Could you tell me any more about the fury? Like, for example, if somebody is a Nawal Khan and they learn about this, does this somehow explain that, look, you're an angry person and you're going to have a rough time, or, what does this mean could you explain it more?
Yes, of course, but let me finish something, because
Sure.
whenever you are in the mountains and you would want to analyze what is going to happen also with the rainy seasons and the rain, what you can pay attention to that dialogue is the sky dialogue, in a dialogue with the earth. Depending of, I think that I already talked about this in one of the podcasts, that you have to pay attention of how the earth responds, how the earth makes an answer to clarify what is going to happen. It's a dialogue. It's a marvelous dialogue between the sky and the earth. And in the old times, it used to be a very sacred moment when this begins to appear. Then, let me tell you, once again, then is fury. It's the fury. So Nawal Khan is associated with the intervention. If you follow the metaphor of the thunder, the changing of the earth and everything, is going to be intervention.
That's actually very helpful.
Look at this. Look at.
Well, hold on now. I have another question. So following Nawal Kat, here's the flame going down, giving its last, maybe lying down. Intervention is the moment it goes out?
Not necessarily. But if cat is feminine, is the fire in let's say the last remaining fire in the earth, then once again the sky comes back with the fury and the sky and the sky from the fire. So now what can is that? Is the intervention, is the new change, is something that is going to that appears suddenly to be analyzed and to once again began the cycles of the earth and the sky, and then the rain, later the rain. Talking about the people, yes, well, the people are imbued. They do have that strong consciousness of being with a high character, with this very heavy character, and usually is that same consciousness of intervention. Nawal Khan is usually associated with the Nawals of the advocates, the lawyers. Is always associated with the person that is going to interview to make an intervention, someone that is powerful than you. Is the one that is going to talk for you in front of authorities. Can the Nawal of advocates, but can also in that sense could be the fury of the enemy, because can also talk about the enemy. And for example, during dreams, the serpent is going to dream. Serpents is going to be associated with the presence of an enemy, a counterflow energy Not necessarily the snake as such, because we are not Christians.
Right.
We are talking about the counterflow of something. When you are going in a direction and in some moment there's a counterflow that arrives in front of you, and then you have to define yourself. Do I
Okay.
make my clear self?
No. I like this. This is actually very helpful because this is, like you said at the beginning, it's a bit of a mystery. This one, I haven't really fully grasped the concept. So that's why I wanted to talk about it more deeply. So the idea of a counterflow, that's very helpful, and the idea of an advocate. So is the advocate, how are the counterflow or the adversary connected with the advocate?
Because the advocate is the one that has more power and is the one that is going to for example, in Mayan, when we are talking about the you have to be strong to defend someone.
True. That again, the advocate also implies a counterflow, because advocate to what, or or advocate against what, or
Well,
okay.
it depends on the case. For example, the spiritual guide sometimes is also called the advocates of the. For example, another way to talk about the achich, the spiritual guide, is when it is said that we are the advaltzich rech wachuleu, or the advaltzich rech rekach uleu. We are the advocates in front of the sky and the earth. When we talk or when we offer a ceremony on behalf of a person or of a client. So in that sense, you're a bridge between authorities, the sky of the earth, or the consciousness of the Nawals, or the way would you want to define them, and you are the advocate for a person that has a problem or that has a question or that has been having illness or something. So in that sense, you have to be stronger and even also in fear. Not like the fury in the sense of angriness, but the fury in the sense of being passionate of what you do. The other fury, the fury of the person.
Perhaps a good word is passion. Is that fair to say?
A what? What word?
Passion.
Well, it will be a combination of strength and passion.
I see. So the fury implies strength. Yeah, that makes sense. But there's also a connection from. Sorry.
Yeah, because what you can do, what happens here is that sometimes there are differences in the idioms. Because for example, in Spanish, the Spanish word furia also could mean that you are very angry about something, that you are furious. In Mayan, it will talk about, for example, the way of an angry dog barking. Kaan, watch, let's eat. The dog has fury or angriness in the face also, but that's why Can is always associated with something very strong, very passionate, very angriness. As I said, you have to be very clever to define without making judgment.
I think that's a key point because, for example, if somebody was to learn that their Nawal was Can, like that makes them angry. That's actually funny.
Well, whenever you deal with a person that is born Nawal Kat, then you have to be clever to be close to not to make because Nawal Kat, by the way, is very intelligent people, very bright people. In the Mayan lands, a Nawal Kat people, a person is always choose to be when a spiritual guide, but especially the spiritualist, the one that talks directly to the spirits, because only they have that capability. They are the ones that has the capability to understand, to listen, and to deal directly with the consciousness of the spirits or with something that you cannot see, but it's talking to you, and usually are the ones that begins to enter into trance, and they began with talk with some voices and stuff. They are very powerful. Sometimes when they finish the session, the trance session, they don't remember what they saw or what they said, but and sometimes they have helpers. That specialization in the Mayan way of counting the calendar is called Ahnawal Mesa, those are the ones that know how to deal with the spirits directly because they have a strong spirit and a strong consciousness.
This is very interesting. So then again, it enters a position of advocate because of the strength
Yeah.
and passion.
Usually, yeah, very
Mhm,
strong people and very intelligent, bright people.
mhm.
They have the eyes of the snake, is something
Their
that is
eyes
said.
are amazing. Yeah, it's really interesting how they all have these crazy eyes.
Yeah, Nawal Kat people is someone you have to deal very carefully, very, very, very carefully.
That's so funny. Well,
But
I think you helped me gain more sight, to understand it more. So thank you.
yes, well, but we haven't finished Can. Can is a very complex and interesting Nawal because because it's talking about counterflow energy also. It's not only
Right.
about the proper consciousness of the Nawal, but also the counterflow energy that can affect you. Whenever you're facing can consciousness or Nawal can not only the person but the counterflow in life, then you have to define. Then you need to see three different stuff. If can consciousness is so strong, then it can destroy you. If it's, let's say, the counterflow is not that big, then it's going to define you because you are going to fight back. But also can be just softly and just is just going to stop you.
Actually, that's super helpful. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, as a fact, it's a very, very, very beautiful history that you are told when you're an apprentice in the mountains about the three different conditions of the counterflow. And also you can say it, the enemy, the three conditions of the enemy. Is the enemy going to stop you? Is the enemy going to redefine you? In that sense, is playing a good role in life
Right.
because the counterflow of the enemy is going to stop you a little bit to redefine you, to give you something, to even if you want to say to teach you or to help you. Sometimes counterflow is very necessary for us to stop in a moment and to see things clearly. And that is let's say a bright side of this calm fury intervention consciousness energy when the enemy or when the counterflow puts you stops you and puts you in the point in which you have to redefine what you are. But also could be the worst, could be the enemy or the counterflow that is going to destroy you. That
Mm.
and in that sense, another key word for can now is going to be annoyance. Annoyance. I don't know.
Annoyance is the correct. Yeah, that's funny.
Annoyance. Yeah.
It's sort of cute. It's a cute way of dealing with a counterflow energy is just calling it annoyance. It must be in the in the soft form of it. Well, that actually is super helpful. All that information will help me appreciate uh, Nawal Kat more and be able to see it in action.
Yeah, it's marvelous. And in life we all know, we have to know what's a moment, times in which the counterflow puts you front to yourself. And sometimes there's people who does not survive adversity or annoyance. But anyways, you have to welcome all this stuff because maybe, as I told you, maybe someone just stops you. Maybe your car does not functions and you cannot go to some place. As for sake, because remember that we don't complain about anything. Sometimes, for example, a counterflow energy or a counterflow event can stop you to do something, but sometimes it's a way of helping you. More difficult is when you have to redefine yourself because we are always found commodity and comfortability being what you are, what you pretend you are, or when you trust about your capabilities, but sometimes it's not. Counterflow energy plays that beautiful role of putting you front to you. And that is some marvelous stuff about Nawal Khan.
So
When dealing in,
face to face with yourself.
yeah.
Okay.
So Khan is very helpful with its with his intervention ways and fury ways, or being even the enemy if you want to personalize that. Or when talking about situations in life, it could be very helpful for you to redefine yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a pretty easy concept that your enemy would define you and compliment you in a way.
Exactly. That's a point. In a moment is something that you have to welcome. Remember that one of the and in this sense we are following metaphors of the serpent as such. For example, this little plant that begins very softly like a serpent surrounding the tree, and then little by little growing up, till finally going into the asphyxiation of the host, like the serpent, and also is the same as for serpents as such, that they began to hold little by little, and suddenly you are suffocated. That's another very common, let's say, understanding of Nawal Khan. Sometimes you are not even aware of what is happening, and something that began softly, even as unheard or something, begins to grow, and then that can suffocate you if you don't pay attention. That is can also.
Is that sort of like the um, to be an advocate of something? The advocate starts small and then ends up, winning the
No,
case or whatever.
no. This is whenever you deal with something you are not aware of. This is mostly when you don't pay attention to stuff, and but it's a way. Is the way also it can suffocate you.
Okay, yeah, yes, they can suffocate you, but they're also quite soft.
Oh yeah.
That's so funny. Okay, well, is that it for Cat? Is that
Well, yes, a Chochinela Chachil Nawal, that is a masculine but aggressive Nawal. Intervention, fury, enter softly and ended strong, the enemy, and annoyance. Well, the next is Kame. Kame, that is also Nawal, whose multiple words that define make it very complex. Sometimes people ask you about what's the meaning of the Nawal, or people is asking you about stuff, and sometimes when you said, well, your Nawal is the serpent, and people is like, what?
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes, for example, for me, I have to be very sensitive to say you're the dog. But happily, some people is very accustomed to astrological stuff, and sometimes when you go to the Chinese, right, and you hear that you're a dog, or you're, I don't
A
know,
rat,
a rat,
pig or rat?
well,
Yeah, a rat.
I'm a rat in the Chinese stuff, so I
Yeah,
know
I
what
know
is
it.
that. But in the Mayan ways, there's also sometimes you have to be very sensitive to, for example, serpent, and that's why it's the sky serpent. Kame is also one that is very sensitive because it deals with colonization of thought and the way we see death. The other day I was in a consultation, and this woman that came, this woman from Corpus Christi, at Texas, but this woman that was living in New York and very American woman. And whenever you talk to someone like that and you said death, the person opens the eyes and is like, what?
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a colonization of thought. It's not death in the morbid, dark way of looking at death, or to be dead, or even to be like assassination or stuff like that. It's not death in that sense. For the first, we have to begin talking about death as the ancestors. Is the dead? Is as to say the dead ones, the communication, but mostly the most important way to talk about Kame is the cycle, in the sense that uh, the grandson is the new seed of the grandfather, and everything is made of cycles. So Nawal Kame will be more connected, more related, more associated in that sense with the use of this word. Kam, Kami, the cycles, the grandson, the grandfather, the granddaughter, and the continuity of life. We are the continuity of the dead ones, the ancestors. That is a way to talk about death. It's a feminine Nawal, Ishokil, once again, is the most sensitive Nawal of all the Nawals, is the most sensitive person in all the senses, is the most, and then one of the first keywords that we're going to use is support. It talks about the person that is supportive, person that is with you, support. But in a difference with Kat, that is a person that pays for the benefit of others.
Can you explain the difference between Kat and Keme again? So Kat pays to benefit others, and Keme
Kat
supports
pays and
others?
do the work for you, even. Kat pays
Okay.
and do the stuff that you have to do, or Kat do the task for you. Kame is more related to support, to be supportive, to be along with you, to be at your side, not more in the sensitive, emotional, if you want to say like that, sense of being supportive, the one that is your brother, the one that is emotionally with you. Kame is the person that is going to go along with you during all the path. It's not going to resolve your problems, but it's going to be with you. Can you see the difference?
Yes, I can.
In that sense, the spiritual guide also plays that role. We are the face of the ancestors. We carry the burden of the cycles of life and death of the ancestors, and we provide support to the clients. We pay for them, and as advocates in Nawal Kat, we do the support, the emotional, the sensitive support of the people.
No, I have another question, but it's not related. But basically, it was Nawal Akmak is also connected with the cycle of ancestors. Is it because
Yeah,
of the
there are
baby?
well, we can do it. We can answer now, because what happens
Okay.
is that this is very important. For to talk about the, let's say the realm of the underground, or the realm of the dead, there are three different Nawals. One is Ahmak, one is Kame, and the other is Honakpu. The three of them are going to be days to be chosen to talk to the ancestors, to pay to the ancestors, or to be in a relationship with the ancestors. Ahmak also goes on today's in the Ahmak sense is more related to the communication to ancestors, to enter into balance with them. Is like when you have a fault, or when you do carry some stuff like an old debt with them. That is Ahmak, a more close relationship to be in balance with them. In the Kamessence is the cycle, is about death and birth. That's why the word is chosen like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
just the cycle itself is Nawal Keme.
yeah. And Hunahpu is more related with honoring as such, with honoring
Bright,
the
shining.
ancestors. And also it talks about the physical realm. Let's say when dividing the universe in three different realms is the sky, the earth, and the underground. And remember that Hunahpu goes to the underground to fight darkness, to come back as the sun and the other as the moon, the Ishbalanque as the moon. So it also talks about, Hunahpu talks about to the ancestors, but in the other sense of the fight, the continuous, or as we did the metaphor with the seed, as to enter into the dark side of a dark and cold and humid realm of the underground to to return bright green, to shine and to flower, to bloom. Also to enter into obscurity, to enter into the night, to rest, or to go into communication with the ancestors, to dreams, for example. It's three different ways of relationship with the ancestors or with the dead as such. That's why there are three different Nawals that deal with that. It's not only one. Remember that all the Nawals has a complex difference between their realms of action, their consciousness to deal with. And for example, let's say something. For example, I don't know. Then one day you discover that your ancestor was, I don't know, I'm going to say whatever, right? A pilot from the World War II, for example. And then you discover that you had an ancestor. But somehow you feel that you own something, that you have to pay something to that ancestor because you also have this tendency of being in the military or to help people or that you have this brave character. Then you are going to choose an ahmak to talk to him, to pay back, to put to pay your respects to your ancestor, right?
Right.
In Kame is just to talk about, let's to as I'm going to continue with easy to understand metaphors, just to put flowers on the grave and to say, well, I honored you. But Kame, but Hunakpu is going to be more like because that's the cycle, and in Hunakpu is going to ask him for help to be a fighter like him if you are weak or something like that. See, the relationship with the ancestors, with the previous ones, the ones that give us our blood, will be defined or redefined or to be or to go or to enter into action through different ones according to the consciousness they are establishing, as to say.
I think I understand. That's very
You
interesting.
better.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it, but I'll have to chew on that one for a while. Let me think about that for a few months. Then it can sink in. It'll be a while. These things they have to settle in. It's my experience. And
Yeah, and that is pretty peculiar because you are on a place, on a country, on a culture that also deals very heavily with the ancestors.
Yeah.
And for sure, based on Jainism or Buddhist stuff, the communication with the ancestors or the relationship with the ancestors is also of key importance of the culture and the spiritual ways you deal with the universe or the world, to honor the ancestors, to be in communication with the ancestors, and to put yourself in balance with the ancestors. See, there are three different ways in the Mayan ceremony, in the Mayan proper way of doing ceremonies. And by the way, there's not only one ceremony, but there are some different. There are some chanted ceremonies. There are fire ceremonies. There are water ceremonies. You know that there are different ways. But anyways, in any ceremony, they're always going to be very important to summon the ancestors and to talk to the ancestors and to honor the ancestors or to pay or to put yourself in balance with the ancestors. And once again, talking about histories that that you are told when you're an apprentice. There's one very important in which you are told that the first one that gets very happy when you receive your signs of your canes or your signs of authority by becoming a spiritual guide is precisely the ancestors, because they are going to be summoned in every ceremony that you perform. Well, something that we haven't said as such or as all, because I'm not giving providing or giving classes for people to perform ceremony, but I haven't been done that. But anyways, in every Mayan ceremony, you have to make in every big ceremony, Mayan ceremony, you have to make recounting of every Nawal in the Mayan calendar. So every ceremony is a restart, as to say, I'm going to use a metaphor to restart the order in the universe. Every Mayan ceremony through the play of water and fire. Then, by making the recounting of all the days, there's going to be a moment in which you are going to talk to Hunaku or to Keme or to Ahmad, any of the three. You can choose any of the three for the different relationships that you are going to establish with them, with the ancestors. So in every ceremony, you are going to summon your own ancestors, and you maybe sometimes in behalf of the client, you are going to summon the others, or you can even summon the ancestors of the Mayan peoples as such, the ones that give their life for the preservation of the tradition. Then there's a moment in which you are going to talk to them. That's why the first one to get happy when you become an ahich, an spiritual guide, an advocate of the sky and the earth, are going to be the ancestors, because your own ancestors are going to be called almost daily or to have a communication with them. Then you begin to dream about them. Then you begin to have communication with them. Then you begin to have some sort of a guidance from them. For us, is, as I said, that you are in Japan. For us, is a living world in which everything is alive, including the dead. So the dead are alive in some sense. We talk to them, we work for them, we admonishing. Sometimes there's also this another some sort of histories in which some of your ancestors didn't pay well with the universe or with the world, and sometimes some illness that you have, some drama that you have, some problems that you have. For example, this is one of the most basic examples when you're trying to have uh, when you're a woman, you will want to get pregnant and you can't. When you want to have a kid and you can't. When you choose, when you're let's say your wife is killed before having kids, or when your husband is killed before having kids, sometimes that is connected with debts from the ancestors. Sometimes they behave on, let's say, on a not correct way, or maybe they left debts in the surface of the earth, and you have to pay that back. Anyways, sometimes some tragic events in your life could be related to something your own ancestors didn't pay properly, or they didn't return in equilibrium to the earth. Remember that I said in most of the podcasts that for us Mayans, the universe is not ours to take advantage or to use at our own capricious ways, or because we are the best or the climax of evolution. For us, it's not like that. For us, the human being is just another being, another part of a bigger system. And everything that you take, you have to pay it back. As when I told you about, if you need a tree and you cut a tree, you have to pay back to the earth by planting 3 new trees, for example. And in some parts of the Mayan lands, just to cut a tree is treated as a felony, and you can go to jail by badly using a tree. You can go directly to the tree. You can be judged as by killing a kid or a person. we pay so much respect for the earth. We have always to be in balance. We have to pay back or we have to give back for what you take from the earth. You have to be at least the minimum to be grateful about your life or what you take from the earth. Sometimes when you have problems in life, sometimes when you have drama in your life, sometimes especially talking about the cycles of life, death and birth. That's why I said the wife that cannot not have a boy, or when a woman uh, her husband is killed or ill or cannot produce kids, sometimes it's related with debts from the ancestors. The seed cannot be produced anymore because they left that debt. That's why it's very important to have a good relationships with them, to pay their owns, to explore what happened before. And for example, it's not very difficult to see stuff like this. I'm going to tell you, for example, a woman that comes to my consultation place and to tell me that she has cancer in the breast, for example, but her mother also, and the grandmother also, and stuff like that. And then you can see that 4 generations back, in 4 generations, there was a woman that was raped, for example, and that suffering of her was not pretty resolved. Then you have to summon that spirit, summon that moment to begin to pay for everyone in the family to resolve this for good. That's something that is very amazing about the Mayan ways, that sometimes that you have to review your own kin, your own lineage, to see why some stuff that happens to you in the present time and that you are not aware of the reason. Maybe it's over there back there. And that's why Kame, Kam, Ahmak, or even Hunahpu are very important to deal with in the Mayan calendar. And during ceremony purposes, it's a purpose of understanding, a purpose of paying or putting things back in equilibrium, and the purpose to continue and then to realize what you are planning.
You said the word kam. Is that a word in Teacha? Kam?
Kame is dead. Kame. Well, is a feminine. It also means suffering, as I said, suffering, to be touched deeply in the heart. Is the support, is dead, as I said, and also plays the role of being affected by rejection. So if you pay attention to everything that I have been said, there's always something that is that you have to resolve back to clear in your present path. Support, suffering, rejection, death, and then just let's say the big pressure in the heart when you are sad, when you are crying, when something is not well resolved. Then we Mayan people we says, oh, that's your Kame, that's your suffering.
Is there a connection between the suffering and the cycle of ancestors?
Yeah, as I said before with example, sometimes there are things that you cannot resolve. The definition of Kame is the ancestors by the way of a cycle. So their actions are also reverberating in your present time. That's why they got happy, because you are going to resolve the stuff. It is cycle, and that's the difference with Ahmak and well, now I think that we have to stop.
I think so too. Sounds
Okay,
good.
Chaperchi, that it means talk to you later. Chaperchi.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. Shoot a message to myself and a Papianteo. You can buy the book in the link below, and you can feed the teacher also in the link below. Thank you very much, and keep on living the Zolkeen. Cheers.